Nakayama Atsushi, a shonen battle manga artist that is not very well known of, and a name that doesn't come up quite often. And I'm making this video because I feel like he's virtually unheard of. I mean, look at some of the views on his YouTube channel, only locking in around 1,000 views per video. It's not like mine do any better, but anyway. If you haven't heard this guy, I heavily suggest that you do. And if you're one of those people that do know him, good for you. You know your shit, man.
Our woman, our queen, she's a god!
Besides, he's a manga artist that often gets drowned out by the endless sea of other battle shonen manga creators out there, like the likes of Oda, Toriyama, and Hiro Mashima. But one I definitely think should be way more talked about than he is now, and risen up from the manga totem pole for multiple reasons. Like how he has a very unique style of writing, and I think tells his stories in a very special way. Not just like the same old stuff that's kind of being drawn extensively now. Like over-the-top action series like Jujutsu Kaisen, and many other manga and other series at this time right now being very popular. Not saying that's a bad thing or anything, I'm just thinking that it has a lot of potential because it's so different to what I think is kind of being portrayed as the norm right now. But it's not like his manga doesn't have fights in it. More on that in a second. My personal favorite reason why I love this guy and why I think he should be more talked about is because of his freaking art, man.
Yeah, boy.
Now, I know that it might not be anything super profound like Berserk or something that might make you stop on a page making you gasp for air. I'm not saying this because he has the best art of all time or anything. I'm not saying this guy's like the second coming of artists. There are plenty of other manga artists that are so amazing in their own right, just like Kentaro Miura, who was a brilliant artist and storyteller and who put so much thought into every single line and drawing that he ever drew. However, it's just that my personal favorite art of all time is ones that are overly cartoony and colorful ones. Ones that make you feel like you're on an acid trip whenever you're looking at them. And my eyes aren't happy unless I'm looking at every color of the Skills rainbow. Or a Vanoss thumbnail. But besides my personal preference, I really do think this guy's art style is objectively great. But you know what they say about art, right? Art is subjective. I really think almost all pieces of media are, but another video for another time. And what some people might see as a strong suit, others might see as a downfall. And some people might see and look at his art and think, not really for me, and I can fully understand that. There are multiple art styles that I don't care for, but that's just my opinion. I just love this guy's art, and you may not, and that is completely fine.
Delectable.
I've never really seen anything else like his art,
Big Macs?
and if there's another manga artist out there like him, I'm sorry for not noticing him. This is just the only manga artist that I've seen with this type of art style. You might know this guy from a specific someone that talked about one of his mangas a while back ago on one of his older videos. And of course the man in question that I'm talking about is of course the Anime Man. He covered it very shortly in his video talking about manga that shouldn't get an anime adaptation. Which kind of sounds like a bad thing. But hold on, keep your cock out.
Misinput, cock out!
He was just saying that the art style was just too weird and expressive to make an anime adaptation good, which I don't think is true. I really think that it could be done with a good animation team. Come on, unlimited budget works, pick this one up! Woo! But if you have heard of this guy, it's most likely from the manga that the man in question recommended. And that is Nijimaki Kaguya, and I am so very sorry if I'm butchering this. But anyway, it's pretty much about, you know, it's actually pretty hard to explain some of the plot, but I'll try my best here. And I am sorry again. English was never my strong suit. Anyway, wait a minute. Whoa. What the hell is that sound? Oh, wait, that's right. You don't have to tell me. I already know. Your homies got you. You don't have to tell me. I already know. I'll only be getting into the first chapter, so very light spoiler warning for this, if you just want to experience it completely raw. But I will be going over the first chapter, so you don't have to worry your ass about it. Alright, let's continue. Nijimaki starts off like any other battle shonen manga series out there, with one of the main characters showing up on the first few panels named Kaguya, however you want to say it, I'm sorry, whose personality is quite sweet most of the time, or being an airhead, by, you know, burning down a house, or her other moments being a complete badass when she's not feeling charitable. And she's made a promise with one of the other main characters named Komo Sensei, I'm sorry if I'm probably butchering the shit out of these names, but he's a teacher at the school where the manga primarily takes place, which the school itself is a key part of the series, and not just set in a school because it can be, which I feel like a lot of manga and anime does a lot of the time. We see Komo-sensei in one of the first few panels of the manga, running late for his first day of teaching kids the importance of safe driving.
Bazinga!
Kidding, he's just a normal-ass teacher. And after having a problem I have on a regular basis of being chased by many women.
Girls! I wanna see men!
Now, I know what you're thinking. Random guy on the internet I randomly found. This just sounds like every other shonen hentai I've ever read. Listen, I know. It really is one of those series, the more you read it, the better it becomes. You gotta give it some time, man. I promise, it gets different. Plus, it's kinda supposed to be a parody of those tropes anyway. But with that out of the way, let's continue on, shall we? He finds himself in quite a predicament with a strapping young man. We see someone mysterious help Komo-sensei out by spinning the shit out of this fine young... Oh my goodness! Lady, by the way, one more interruption before we move on. I'm sorry. I never really mentioned how she fights. She fights using spiral power. And no, not those kind of spirals. Actually, the main title of the series relates to this, as the main title, Nijimaki Kagyui, means, roughly in English, is screw winding. If that's horribly off, I'm sorry. I use Google Translate. But nonetheless, is a very cool martial art that I think kind of perfectly complements how he draws and how it's just insane the way that he over-exaggerates emotions to where they're not even human anymore. It's just super fascinating to me and really is kind of the reasons why I love this guy so much and the series. But I'm going to try and stop jerking off his art for a second here. Let's continue more about her abilities. Her spiral powers are guided and powered by balance and her inner ear for her main source of propulsion. That does actually have limits, and it's said in the series that Nijimaki Zenmai-kin is a martial art that takes the form of a snail shell, which I can kind of see, and it's kind of a main theme throughout the series, seeing snails being drawn near the end of some of the books and the very beginning of the story. Maybe being drawn for fun or not. We'll never know.
But hey, that's just a game theory.
Write that down, write that down!
Alright, let's get back to the plot at hand. After she's dealt with, she goes to her homies for comfort, saying she needs a kiss goodnight to call for the troops. Meanwhile, this stranger goes on protecting Komo-sensei from minuscule things for the rest of the walk to the school. And when they get there, this stranger, okay, that's enough, it's Kaguya. She starts slacking on the job because Komo gets mokubud.
Perhaps I should consider keeping him on a leash.
Sorry, kidnapped. And Kogi gets ganged up on. And they both kind of get the shit beat out of them. But especially Komo-sensei, which Kagi sees. And doesn't take too kindly to. And eventually gets to the point to where she has more rage than a 2012 Call of Duty lobby.
I'm a pussy that use my shield!
And after breaking free from the goon's grasp, she walks up to the main man in question. And says some badass shit like, saying she'll take her down in one shot, and explaining to her how her power works. And what she says is pretty cool. Saying, my Southern House Nijimaki-kin spins the body faster than a bullet. It is a fist that spins at high speed. It adds power to a simple punch, adding an explosive edge to it. With revolution power whose origin is the universe, and a power that only women happen to possess. And after these words that really got my ape-brain running and really excited, she unleashes her inner magician. And Komo finally remembers who she is. She's his best friend from childhood, that he's made a promise to many years ago, and eventually they make it to the school where they finally relax for a second, leading us into the second chapter. And this kind of wraps it up, and there's a lot more chapters to come, but I won't be getting into those. So you can try and experience this for yourself, if you're interested. But I'll talk a little bit more about the series as a whole before I move on. Kagi and friends take on a lot of enemies throughout the series, taking on the hierarchy of the school, people that we might have considered to be friends on the first few viewing, but most importantly, the principal, which is a pretty cool villain, and is the main antagonist even though it's not very explicitly kind of told you that he is. It's kind of a battle of principles, and what's the right way to teach, and so on and so forth. It's kind of hard to describe it, it really is one of those series you kind of have to pick up for yourself to fully know what the hell I'm talking about. But further on along the way, we keep seeing that newer characters keep getting added throughout the story the more we keep reading. You know, how the way a story is supposed to go. But let's not forget about my favorite character, Marble.
Damn, boy!
She,
Thick! Boy! That's a thick...
which is Kaguya's sister, who is apparently Chinese.
朋友是一个
Well, trained in China, looking like she came straight out of a Hot Topic. And we also see that she's a little too wacky and crazy, who's also been eating way too many Flintstone gummies, which I used to eat like they were Scooby-Doo fruit snacks after school. Also, she's a character who, unfortunately, comes up in kind of the middle of the manga, on chapter 37, so don't expect her on the first few chapters. Now, before I finish this video out, you might have noticed that I didn't go into enough detail into the series or didn't talk about the characters enough before I moved on. Well, I don't want to spoil the whole thing for you. I absolutely fell in love with this guy's works. And for a while, I was completely addicted to Nijimaki. Enough to where it actually ended up probably being my favorite manga I have ever experienced.
Stop the cap!
It was so much fun for me to read. And it's not just like there was only happy, good fun times in the manga. There's some dark, under-earthing themes that actually surprised me a lot and making me openly gasp in an uncomfortable place to be doing so. Oh my God! And it actually looks deeper than the first few chapters may make you believe it to be. And as well as some amazing fight scenes that actually got me pretty hyped. And the same goes for a lot of his other works, like another one that I highly suggest is his newest work called Suicide Girls, which is a manga that I think, yet again, takes something dark like suicide and uses it in a very unique concept that really enthralled me into his types of stories, along with some amazing art to complement it. And I also enjoyed this one so much that the day that I started reading it, I finished all of the chapters that were translated all in one day. Also, that reminds me, by the way, in this point in the video, if you're wondering how I can get a hold on one of this guy's books, you can't. None of his works were translated officially. They were all unofficially translated in English, on digital. Never officially translated on digital or physical. So if you ever want to read this guy's stuff, you have to read it online, on legal websites, which really sucks. And also another big reason why no one has really heard of this guy, which to me is really sad, because I just enjoy it that much. If you happen to get interested in this guy's stuff, I suggest checking him out, and starting on one of the mangas that I was talking about earlier, either Nijimaki or Suicide Girls. And you can find them on totally legal sites, so please, let's get one of the underpaid manga artists a little bit more recognition, and maybe they will get an official release. Thank you guys so much for sticking through this horrible video, and if you liked it, please leave a like. Or if you thought this video was more cringe than your Instagram feed, then make sure to leave a dislike. But nonetheless, I still really appreciate you guys sticking through it, and I'll make sure that there's more videos to come. Thank you guys again so much, and I'll see you later.